This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool that helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
In a week of shock Premier League victories, few were humbled to a greater extent than Manchester United. Bournemouth came to Old Trafford and taught United and Erik ten Hag a lesson in energy, organisation and execution. A 3-0 victory, and it could have been 5. United have lost little ground in the race for top 4 as it goes because of results elsewhere, but Saturday afternoon's match was a really damning indictment of the team right now. Where do the Reds go from here? Who takes the majority of the blame? What lessons are there to be learned? And can Erik ten Hag carry on? Those questions and many more will be answered, or at least debated, today. A very warm welcome to the Manchester United Weekly Podcast with me, Harry Robinson and Jack Tait, where we're reviewing that game, previewing matches against Bayern Munich, who had their own shock defeat this weekend, and Liverpool, who required another late winner, and discuss plenty more. We'll play Guess the Player, give you an academy briefing and loan update, and our patrons will get a 10-minute bonus Q&A in which we talk the January transfer window, amongst other things. So let's begin. Jack, this was really bad. It's worth emphasising that in full before we even dive in. What would you give this as a rating out of 10?
3? It seems appropriate.
I would have gone 1 or 2, but yeah.
I think the first half was okay-ish. Like, I sort of went into half-time thinking we've not done much, but we've played worse this year.
Yes.
And then it just felt so flat in the second half.
I think the difference, it's a strange week, isn't it? We've gone to Newcastle and been humbled there, but by a very narrow scoreline when it could have been more. But the overriding feeling coming out of Newcastle with the players, for whatever reason, conscious or otherwise, hadn't put in enough effort. You get Chelsea and you see desire and energy and some good play. But I don't think we came out that Chelsea game, and listeners, if they listened to that episode, would have heard me, Nathan, Kieran and Cheska very pleased after that, because we saw that energy and intensity to United's game. But I don't think we were talking about United having control on the game or playing very good football. So maybe that Chelsea game, when we look back in 2 months' time, will be seen as an anomaly. You then get Bournemouth, which is, I don't know if you'll agree, but to me felt like another kind of game where, again, you saw, I didn't watch that United team and I didn't think they're not trying. There were isolated incidents where, I think, as we spoke about with Rashford at Newcastle, where some players are lacking that 2 or 3% and lacking less the effort and more the focus required. They're not switched on. They're not realising, I should make that run, or I shouldn't track this man, I should stay on my man. We'll come on to some of those specifics in a bit, but I don't think effort was lacking here. We'll see if you agree, but even when it was going fine in the first half, where you thought this is bad, but it's fixable, it was like watching, it was a completely mindless performance. It was 11 players just charging around, and a year and a half or season and just under a half in to a manager's era. That is so concerning.
Yeah, if you put sort of effort on a spectrum from no effort at all on one end to like the most kind of intense, energetic performance you've ever seen, this felt like it was at sort of maybe 40% of the way up that scale. There wasn't any lack of effort that would make you think this is a huge problem, but especially coming right off the back of the performance against Chelsea, where, like you said, despite not really ever controlling that game, we were very intense. We had really good tempo. We felt like we were in the game right from the first whistle. This was a big step down from that on that front. And
such a complacent start.
Yeah, massively. And to your point about, we're a year and a half in, I mean, this whole result obviously is a really bad indictment of where this team is. But I think another thing is that we're a year and a half into this, and effort is still sort of the metric on which we can mainly judge these United performances.
Yeah.
Because there isn't really anything else that we know we're trying to achieve. And I think that's kind of the problem.
It says everything. We came out, the reason that me and my mates were excited, or not excited, but pleased and buoyant after the Chelsea game was because the standards are so low now that we'd seen the team put in effort and went, oh, brilliant. And obviously it helped that we won. But yeah, that is evidence of your point.
But at this point in a manager's reign, to me, you should be able to point to maybe 2 or 3 things that every single week your team is going to be striving to achieve, whether it's full control of the game, whether it's been really, really tight defensively, whether it's, really structured patterns of play, like maybe a midfielder dropping in between the centre-backs, full-backs inverting, wingers getting wide, full-backs overlapping, whatever it might be. You want to know, okay, I can say United did or didn't play well this week because we know that this is the way that we want to play and we didn't do that this week, even if you win. And we just don't. And so then the only thing we have every week that is consistent, that we know that we should be striving for in every game, is effort and intensity. And that's all we really have to fall back on as how to judge these performances. And that's not good enough.
Yeah. But this, with regards to effort, this was fine. It wasn't good, but effort was not the problem in this game. It was complacency and I think a misjudgment of the intensity and quality with which Bournemouth play. They're on a very good run and learning Areola's style, and that was clear. And yeah, this was a comparison of a team who have been drilled in their manager's style, and they've gone through a bit of pain, but they're coming out the other end and now having some fantastic results, like winning 3-0 at Old Trafford, and another team who just aren't doing anything.
And to be fair, I think one thing that counted against us in some ways is that I think Ten Hag had set the team up to try to deal with Bournemouth, who are a very aggressive pressing side. It's what Areola is famous for.
But had he?
And so you saw right from the start, the big thing that I took away anyway was Amrabat was really dropping deep in between the 2 centre-backs to receive the ball. And it, to be fair, for the first 5 minutes or so, it worked okay. But then I think because Bournemouth then get that early goal, the game state changes, and they actually weren't that aggressive in their press for most of the game from then on. They sat back and allowed us to just try and break them down, and we couldn't. And it meant that
both, whether Bournemouth were going to press us hard, as you say, they did and have been doing to many teams, or sit back, in both scenarios, in what world is the team that Ten Hag put out suitable to that?
No, I totally
how
agree.
They played, but the personnel. It was absolutely baffling, and it's something that I think has been a trend this season. The McTominay Amrabat midfield was suited to play against Chelsea because of the nature of that game. In no conceivable world was it again suitable to play against Bournemouth, because we know that McTominay hides. He doesn't want to receive the ball because he's not confident enough on it. Amrabat is fine, and he had a very, very good game against Chelsea, it should be said. And McTominay had a good game for different reasons because of his finishing rather than his quality as a midfielder. But in this game, neither of them were suited to it. And so, for starters, you watch Bournemouth press very well, and United have no real way. As you say, there were some moments where it was okay. And I think that's why Shaw was playing at centre-back. So it was kind of this weird thing where you've got Ten Hag sacrificing, and this ended up being a massive problem where United would have attacks down the left, and because it was Reguilón instead of Shaw, the final ball would be just really poor, and you thought if Shaw was there, that might have ended up in something good. So Ten Hag sacrificed Shaw's quality on the left in favour of having a ball-playing left centre-back. But so he's clearly got that in his head that United need some quality on the ball, and yet then he's played McTominay. It goes back to this trend that we're seeing of him being desperate to have goal scorers on the pitch because it's not coming from the strikers, it's not coming from Højlund or Rashford or whoever's there, but also where he kind of like one game goes well, and because standards are so low and because confidence is so low, he's desperate to keep that team as it is. And I just lost all faith when I saw Anthony Martial starting, and the same to a slightly lesser extent for McTominay because he's not suited to this game. And this is, I was coming out of Old Trafford, and Kieran, who was on Wednesday's episode, said, I'm just not I'm not as angry or sad. And that shows everything about how the kind of apathy feeling towards this United team. And I said, I get what you mean, but I am angry because I think Ten Hag's a really good manager and I like him. And I do believe that in the right set of circumstances, he can go on to win big trophies with United. And so the reason I'm angry is because he's making stupid decisions which will get him sacked. And dropping your standards and playing Anthony Martial time and time again when he's let this club down for half a decade or more, and then also trusting in players you know aren't suited to these games, that's what makes me angry. I'm not surprised by what the players do anymore. As Roy Keane has said, leopards don't change their spots. But what surprises me and angers me and disappoints me is that Ten Hag is kind of being sucked into that old trap that has got managers sacked here several times over the last decade.
I did not understand the team at all. I woke up yesterday morning thinking this was the perfect game for Kobbie Mainoo to be in midfield. I understand why Ten Hag hasn't played him, because I think there was a lot of sort of clamour from fans after the performance from Mainoo against Everton that he should just be starting every game and he was on his own going to be the solution to all of our midfield problems. That was never going to be the case. But this was the kind of game that he would have been perfectly suited for. A Bournemouth team that are normally very aggressive in how they put you under pressure, high up the pitch, someone in midfield that could receive the ball under that little bit of pressure and remain calm, not only help us keep the ball, but help us move forward. To me, I would have played him and Amrabat in midfield together. Yeah. You push Amrabat slightly higher up the pitch than he is normally. Then his energy and intensity of being a disruptor for Bournemouth in transition would have been
in the
good.
Fred role.
In the Fred role, exactly. And this didn't pan out because we conceded the early goal, which made Bournemouth sit deep. But I don't think you needed that extra midfielder bombing into the box like the role that McTominay plays, because the route, on paper at least, to beat Bournemouth was you beat that initial press and then you spring quick attacks from there. So you didn't really need that extra body getting forward, because if you could get out of their initial press and get the ball into the front four, more than likely it would have been probably 4 against 5 maybe Bournemouth defenders, and then you kind of back yourselves in those situations. Mainoo not playing with McTominay and Amrabat in midfield, we just had no hope of ever really doing that. But then again, and this sort of goes back to what we were saying about the Newcastle game. If you want to play an Amrabat McTominay midfield, you can't then be setting up the rest of your game plan as if you want to keep the ball and play out from the back and plays really intricate passing. If you want to put McTominay in there, play to his strengths. And that doesn't mean asking him to receive the ball 20 yards from goal under pressure from a Bournemouth midfielder.
Yeah.
And I think, you've mentioned this before, that Ten Hag is falling into the trap of just trying to get as many sort of goal scorers onto the pitch as possible, which is often the sign of a manager
and that's the case with Martial as well. Like, he scores 1 goal at Everton. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, he's good again. No, he's not. He just isn't. You cannot be playing Martial at United in 2023. I saw this on Twitter the other day. It was 2 years ago that we sent Martial on loan to Sevilla. 2 years, and that was viewed as sort of, okay, he's done. His United career is over. If he does well at Sevilla, they'll sign him permanently. But even if not, he's still gone. And they didn't want him because he was rubbish for them as well. And 2 years later, not only is he still here, he's playing more games this year than he has in a long time. Yeah. And I think listeners, like long-time listeners of this podcast, and you will know, it's pretty rare for a United player to piss me off like Martial does. But it's because he represents everything that's gone wrong with this club over the last 10 years. Just a pure acceptance of genuine mediocrity and lack of effort. And the reason it angers me is Ten Hag set such good standards last year. He was ruthless. He got rid of Ronaldo. He dropped Maguire, and then in summer took the captaincy off him. He dropped Rashford when he was late there were all these examples, and like Shaw had to work his way back into the team after a bad first 2 games. Casemiro had to work his way into the team even after signing from Real Madrid. The standards were set and they'd been missing for far too long, and he's let them slip. And Martial is the obvious example of that. And this Bournemouth game showed that, not just the starting lineup, but the fact that he made no changes at halftime is beyond me. Yeah. It was so blatantly obvious. And as you say, fair enough, the game plan would have had to change because Bournemouth got that early goal. And so they started playing in a different manner to perhaps how we expected them to play with the score at 0-0. But again, that's even more of a reason to make a change. It was so obvious what was needed. You had to get Shaw's quality on the left, and eventually he did make a change similar to that goal. You needed a player much more comfortable on the ball in midfield. Kobbie Mainoo never even got on the pitch, which is baffling to me. And Martial had to come off. And the idea that you're kind of protecting Højlund's minutes, I get it. But if he's fit enough to be on the bench and to come on after 56 minutes and start warming up in the 20th minute and carry on warming up until he comes on, then I'm not sure.
Well, the other thing as well from the start, if you really want to protect Højlund's minutes, fine. Ten Hag seems to have been doing that all season in a way that I don't fully understand. But if he thinks that's what's needed,
just play Rashford up
fine.
Front.
Exactly. Like you've shown,
or a kid.
It's exactly what I was about to say. You've shown your willingness to play Rashford out of position for the last few weeks because you've been playing him on the right. It's not going to be any worse playing him at striker. And we know at the very least he will offer us a little bit more than Martial does.
It's the atmosphere was bad at the end. There was a kind of, as always with these kind of games where United have been humbled, there was kind of a defiant United calypso from the Stretford end, but that was very much mixed with boos, and there were kind of dirty looks. Not in where I was sat, but I was speaking to someone who sat on the left side of the Stretford end and was saying those who were singing the calypso kind of defiantly were getting dirty looks from others who thought there should be no noise to greet this United team except boos. And it was, I wouldn't even say it was nasty. It was just, it felt so flat. And you just watched that team and thought, you haven't changed, have you? That's a team that has let me down so many times before. And I was looking, I can't remember why, but I was looking at the date. I think I just had an inkling that it was around this time where Mourinho was sacked after the Liverpool game, and that was December the 18th, 5 years ago. United now go to Liverpool on December the 17th. And the mistakes that Ten Hag made in this game and the lack of focus from the players, and I think that is an issue, but we have spoken about the players a lot, so we can talk about that a bit less this week, has created a scenario where I think kind of whatever happens on Wednesday against Bayern, United goes to Liverpool this time knowing if it's really bad, then what happens with Ten Hag? And I want United to stick with him whatever happens, because I think he's a good manager and I think he's been let down by the players, and I think he needs someone to say to him, you have the power to make big changes here and to get rid of whoever you want to get rid of to change the culture here, because it stinks. But we know that football's not always going to give managers chances like that. Let's have guess the player clue 1, and then we'll go into a wider discussion on Ten Hag and what will happen over the next few weeks. So guess the player last week was Owen Hargreaves. Jack was setting the clues for me. This week it's me setting the clue for Jack. There'll be 3 clues. It's of a Manchester United player or staff member, past or present. The quicker you get it, the more points you get. And Jack, clue number 1, and it's a topical one, is I played for both Manchester United and Liverpool, and I also played in another of Europe's top 5 leagues. I played for both United and Liverpool, and also I played in one of Europe's other top 5 leagues. Okay.
I mean, there's a couple that immediately come to mind, like Michael Owen, Paul Ince. I mean, there's definitely not enough to go on.
I bet.
There's plenty more that are a lot older. You do have you would set older clues much more than I would, so I'm trying to just figure out if you're going really old. But for now, definitely not enough to make a guess on. Well, I guess the fact they're playing in one of Europe's other top 5 leagues probably narrows it down away from too old. That's why Owen and Ince were the first ones that came to mind, because Michael Owen went to Real Madrid, Paul Ince played for Inter Milan, I think. All right, yeah, we'll come back to it.
2 good options. And I'll let you think to see if there's any more, or if you want to go with one of those.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks. Equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
I've said my thoughts on Ten Hag, and I think it is. I think realistically, United won't sack Ten Hag soon because of the uncertainty around the ownership. And I've said I want United to stick with Ten Hag and give him the power to make changes. I think he's good. I like him. I think he can be successful at United. That's why it's so painful when you see him making mistakes like he did on Saturday, because he really balls that up from the starting lineup to the subs or lack thereof to the tactics to everything. It was a really bad day for him, and that's why it angers me, because I want him to do well. What do you think about him, about his future, and whether United are anywhere close to pulling the trigger, or if you don't think it's realistic at all?
It's funny, the whole season has just felt like any time you take a step forward, we then immediately take 2 steps back. Go to the Everton game, which felt like it should have been a turning point, and then you go and draw against Galatasaray. In fact, no, was that Copenhagen? I'm losing track of when it was, and then you lose to Newcastle.
It was the winner, Everton,
and the draw,
then
Galatasaray, then Newcastle.
And then Newcastle. Just to say, Everton are just beating Chelsea 2-0. So our win there is, for all of our failures, our win there is looking pretty good right now, after Newcastle were beating 3-0 there as well.
And then you beat Chelsea, and like you said, there was a lot of caveats to that performance, I think, but it was better, a lot better. And you think, okay, we're on the right track. And then it's Bournemouth again. And it just, Ten Hag to me has felt always one game away from being back in a sort of crisis. And to be fair, I think these crises they're somewhat also produced by the pressure that gets put on from outside. Because you look at the team you just mentioned, Chelsea, you've just lost to us, and then Everton sit in, I think, 11th place. It's not the same kind of pressure on Pochettino. And so it is somewhat manufactured from outside. But I think if the ownership situation wasn't in flux, I think if we got beat by both Bayern and Liverpool this week, I think Ten Hag would be gone. Because at that point, we'd have finished bottom of our Champions League group, have kind of lurched from bad performance to bad performance all season, shown no signs of improving this away record against big teams, and we'd sit most likely in 7th place at that point. And I think it would be hard to justify keeping him. The ownership situation might just about save him.
But what would you do? That's what you think will happen. What would you say? Say we lose to Bayern and Liverpool. Obviously, the performances as well as the results dictate decisions somewhat if it's 2 narrow games. But what would your instinct be?
Yeah.
Do you think he can turn this around, or do you not?
The thing is, right, I saw enough last season to make me believe that Erik Ten Hag can be a successful Man United manager. I think that was the most positive season that we've had probably since Mourinho's second season. The year we finished second and won a few trophies. But at the same time, what we've seen this year is making me doubt that massively. I think ultimately, especially given the ownership situation, I would keep Ten Hag, because I just don't see what it gains at this point. The new owners are going to come in and want to change things anyway. I'd rather them...
There's no obvious candidate anyway.
Yeah. If they come in and by the end of the season, let's say we just about scrape top 4 or something along those lines where the season isn't a complete disaster. If the new ownership feel that Ten Hag isn't the right person, I'd actually rather them get rid of him then than make that decision now when they don't really know what's happening inside.
I just want to see him have the opportunity to be successful. And I don't think I think he did have that last season, and he was backed in the transfer market and in his decision to get rid of Ronaldo. And he was backed in all other decisions. I think he's been backed with regards to Sancho. But as I've said several times over the last few episodes, I think what's missing is that because of the lack of clarity, is someone saying to him, you're safe. We want you to change this club and change the squad. And I think under Ineos, he, for at least a short term, would get that. I think either they would change things immediately or give him backing for at least the first 6 months and see how he can do. So, yeah, I would certainly stick with him. But you look at the successful teams in English football, it's the ones who allow managers to build something and change things, deconstruct teams and build them back up again. It's not the ones like Chelsea, who are sitting in 12th now, who change time and time again. And that Chelsea model did work for a long time. under Abramovich with a ridiculous amount of money. And as it's become clear, cheating. But it's not working now, and it's no surprise. And it's also not the kind of club that we want to be.
Well, I think that model also works when there is that ingrained culture of winning at a club. And so no matter which manager comes in, there's a lot of ingrained trust in that group of players. Chelsea have lost that at this point, which is why I don't think that can work. And that's been lost at Man United for a decade at this point.
Yeah.
And I think, it is easy, look, because for every Arteta or Klopp that you point to and say, look, they had a tough start and very easily could have been sacked at various points and they stuck with them and now look where they are. You've also got other examples of teams who changed their manager and it worked, or stuck with managers for too long and it sort of drove them into the ground. So I don't think there's one sort of
but
rhyme
we're not
or reason.
I don't think we're at that stage. It's not like Brendan Rodgers at Leicester where it's been 4 or 5 years.
But I just mean, I don't think you can look at any other model of sort of how clubs deal with managers sort of teetering on the edge of being sacked and say that's what United should do. But I think the thing for United is that, look, we've all been sitting here for 20 years, but especially since Ferguson's gone, 10 years, saying it's the ownership and the direction of the club upstairs that are limiting managers' abilities to actually turn this club into the club that we want it to be.
Yeah.
That isn't completely changing, but we have the biggest opportunity to actually change that than we've had at any point since the Glazers took over the club.
Mm-hmm.
It feels, I don't know if it feels wrong, but it feels maybe a little bit silly to change the manager just as that actually happens. Why not?
Yeah.
Because I think that the hypothesis that we all have at this point, the theory is whatever manager we have under the current structure is not going to work. Well, let's see if that actually plays out with Ten Hag under this new structure in a transfer window when he isn't completely dictating every single signing that we make. Will it improve?
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, we shouldn't look to other clubs because United is unique in its size and its culture. And yeah, you're also right about that.
Having said all that, just quickly, having said all that, I would understand if Ten Hag was sacked at this point. I wouldn't agree with it, but I could understand why that decision would be made.
Yeah.
At any point this season, this is the closest I've felt to not wanting him to be sacked, but to sort of thinking, well, I could really see an argument that I'd have trouble refuting for him to go.
Yeah, but I don't want it to happen.
I think if you took out the ownership situation, I think he'd be on his way out.
It wouldn't be like this. You can't do that.
No.
Even if things were as they were 3 years ago, as in undisputed, certain Glazer ownership, I think things would be better than they are right now. That's not to say I want the Glazers to continue as owners of United, but the uncertainty of this period is contributing to what's happening on the pitch. I'm convinced of that. So yeah, you can't really take that out. Anyway, guess the player clue 2, and then we'll go into Patreon Q&A where we're going to talk about the January transfer window, answering a couple of questions, including one from Paul Meachin. So clue 2, and as a reminder, clue number 1 was that I played for both Man United and Liverpool, and I also played in another of Europe's top 5 leagues. Clue number 2, I was born in London and came through as a midfielder at my boyhood club, who were then managed by John Lyall. Born in London, came through as a midfielder at my boyhood club, who were then managed by John Lyall. Does that enlighten things any further?
Yeah. Well, so the obvious one that's staring me right in the face is well, I'm not going to say it actually, but I've got one that I think it is, but I'm just trying to wrap my brains on if I'm forgetting anyone that it could be.
Okay, I'll let you do that over the Patreon Q&A, and then
go on.
I think you'll probably guess before clue 3, but don't tell everyone so that anyone who hasn't got it yet can guess, and then we'll reveal it right at the end of the show. So let's go into Patreon Q&A for our patrons and an ad break for everyone else.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing. Again. And that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together. Like party playlists and Friday nights, campfires and ghost stories, peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
Coming out the Patreon Q&A or the ad break for normal subscribers, where we had an interesting discussion on the January transfer window, and we played a kind of a game of keep, last straw or move on, inspired by the Stick to Football podcast. If you want to sign up to become a patron, you can. Patreon.com/United Weekly Podcast. And you can sign up for as little as £1.50 a month. You get ad-free episodes, you get them earlier than normal subscribers, and you get those bonus Q&As as well. We think it's decent value. Quickly, there are no academy games this week. The under-21s had no fixture. The under-18s game against Liverpool was postponed because of Liverpool's Youth Cup game. That game at Liverpool will now be played at the end of January. United's Youth Cup game isn't until the 19th of December, Tuesday. Tickets are available for the game, the third round game against Derby County, £3 for adults, £1.50 for under 16s. I'm not quite sure why it's £3. The FA Youth Cup final was only £1. It doesn't strike me as something very good to do. You should be encouraging fans to come to those games, and the academy are very keen for fans to come to those games, and charging them £3 seems just kind of pointless. No academy games, but some youth action. Will Fish scored last week for Hibernian. He's playing every game, 90 minutes for Hibernian, sometimes 2 or 3 games a week. So he's doing really well, and that's a potential player where United could make some decent profit in the summer by selling him somewhere. Charlie McNeil, the striker, has not played for Stevenage since the 23rd of September. That loan move isn't going fantastically for him. Alvaro Fernandez is playing semi-regularly for Granada. He came off the bench against Real Madrid last week, and in his performances he's doing quite well, but he's not made himself an undroppable starter. That much is clear. The United women play after we record this, so I can't give you an update on their success. They've been playing this weekend, this Sunday afternoon against Tottenham away. Guess the player clue 3. Jack, do you want to, don't tell me your guess, but do you want to kind of lock in your guess before I give you clue 3?
Yeah, I've got a guess.
I will trust that you won't change it. As a reminder, clue 1 is I played for both United and Liverpool, and I played in another of Europe's top 5 leagues. Clue 2 was I was born in London, came through as a midfielder at my boyhood club, who were then managed by John Lyall. And clue number 3, I won 2 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups, a European Cup Winners' Cup, and a League Cup. I won nothing with Liverpool.
Yeah, that cemented my guess.
Okay, I'll reveal after we talk about Bayern Munich and Liverpool. First of all, Bayern, who were beaten 5-1 at the weekend. It's been an amazing week for football results. Let me just, going back to the midweek fixtures, United obviously with a good result. But yeah, Luton 3, Arsenal 4. He then had Fulham beating Forest 5-0, and then they've just beaten West Ham 5-0. Amazing week for Fulham. Wow. Villa beating City and Arsenal. West Ham beating Spurs away, Everton trouncing Newcastle. You've then got Palace holding Liverpool right until the end, and then a last-minute winner. Bournemouth beating United, Sheffield United getting a win against Brentford, Everton beating Chelsea, Luton coming close to a good result against City. It's and then Bayern Munich getting spanked 5-1. It's amazing. What are your thoughts going into this game?
It's going to be 5-5. I don't really know. I mean, I felt like watching the Chelsea game last week, that felt so much like our Champions League performances. It felt like that game could have been 4-3 on another day. I mean, I hope that we just come out and go for it, ultimately.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not like we've cared about shipping goals in our Champions League campaign already.
Yeah.
We might as well just come out, absolutely go for it. I don't know what kind of team Bayern are going to put out. I'm not sure if them getting spanked at the weekend actually makes it more or less likely that Tuchel would play a rotated team. I could see him playing a rotated team as punishment, but I could also see it punishing that, like, he wants them to get back on track.
Yeah, but I think because they've got Stuttgart at the following weekend, and for those who haven't seen the Bundesliga recently, Bayer Leverkusen are top, having played one more game than Bayern, but they lead Bayern by 4 points. Bayern are then second, 13 games played, 32 points. Stuttgart are 1 point behind Bayern. So you've got a second versus third game. Much like us, we've got Liverpool at the weekend, and it's a big game, but obviously we have something to play for. Bayern have already won the group. So I think given the big defeat in the league, and then now having an important league game where they need to win even more than they did before, I think probably makes him more likely to rotate some players. But ultimately, they'll still be a very good team. And it's weird, we've got these two games against Bayern and Liverpool, and I want to see United really go for it against Bayern and just see what happens and play our good players, not play our bad players. And then I want us to go to Liverpool and just stink the place out and park the bus and see if we can, just what we can get. It's two very different strategies, and I hope Ten Hag is adaptable enough to go, we need just go to Liverpool and do a proper Jose Mourinho and see if you can get a 0-0 draw or a 1-0 win.
I'd be absolutely fine with that. I don't care what the game looks like for 90 minutes against Liverpool. If we come out with anything, great.
Yeah.
But yeah, against Bayern, look, ultimately, it's one of those games where I sort of think, just go and have fun. Like, we've got to play, we've got to win, we've got to go out and play attacking football. We should just absolutely go for it. We have nothing to lose. Yeah,
and I want to see that in the team selection as well. Bruno Fernandes will obviously play. I actually think on the subject of stinking the place out at Liverpool, Fernandes being suspended on the face of it looks like a bad thing. And maybe I'm just deluding myself by saying what I'm about to say, but I think Fernandes being suspended because of 5 yellow cards at Anfield could benefit United, because you're obviously going to miss his creativity. He is by far and away our most creative player and one of the best creators in world football. But I hope it forces Ten Hag to do what Mourinho had no shame in doing and just go and stink the place out. Because as we know, for all of Fernandes' strength and however much I love him, which I do, and however much I think he's a great player, he loses the ball very easily. He can be very ill-disciplined. He can get very annoyed in games when things aren't going his way. And that's not what United don't want, any of those things at Anfield. So I hope his absence makes Ten Hag reevaluate and go for that defensive strategy, because we can't go toe-to-toe with Liverpool right now. I think this team, these players could one day in a better form and with better confidence and all of that. But right now we can't go toe-to-toe with Liverpool. So we're going to have to go and play like a small team there, and it's Anfield. So that's all right. But yeah. Do you agree on the Fernandes suspension front?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's good, but I can understand why it could help in certain situations, especially if the game is difficult. It will help us maintain a better structure and organisation, I think, which Bruno Fernandes is definitely not very good for. The other thing that I think having Maguire in defence kind of helps with this too, because it will hopefully force Ten Hag and our setup to be, we've got to sit quite deep. We can't play a high line. We've tried that once before at Anfield, and that we got beat 4-0 that year.
Yeah.
You know, we can't risk doing that with someone like Maguire in our backline. If it was a Varane and Martinez, maybe Ten Hag would think that he could. So look, we've got to play to the players that we have available, and that unfortunately means playing like a mid-table team. And I think we've just got to deal with that. Which
we almost are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bayern, I'd love to see Kobe Mainoo play. The rest, I don't really care who does start. It's more I care who doesn't start at the moment. But yeah, I'd like to see Mainoo given another chance to show his qualities.
Yeah, 100%.
In terms of,
would you then play Hannibal at Anfield?
No. No.
Who would you play in midfield then? So I'm guessing Amrabat, McTominay.
None of them.
Just play without a midfield.
I don't trust a single one of United's. I don't trust any of United's midfield. I would happily play Kobe Mainoo there. I trust him more than I trust United's other players. But I guess if you're going to go for sitting deep and combative, then Amrabat, yeah, definitely. Like, you'd be tempted to say McTominay, and if you're going to need a goal. But
do you actually just play McTominay as?
Yeah, you could. Yeah,
like a second striker, basically.
Well, or
like, do you just replace Bruno Fernandes with him?
Yeah, possibly. But then who's the other midfielder?
The thing is, we honestly just don't have, like, it's not that the options we have are good or bad. Like, with the injuries, we just don't have options. Like, realistically, without Bruno Fernandes, our only fit midfielders are Amrabat, Kobbie Mainoo, McTominay, and Hannibal, and Donny van de Beek.
Yeah, I would probably play, I don't know, to be honest, and Ten Hag's going to know better than me anyway. But I would be happy seeing McTominay further forward, but helping out in defence, and Mainoo and Amrabat. Or maybe play Mainoo a bit further forward, but dropping deep to receive the ball and carry it. And then you play McTominay going up when necessary. But yeah, you could have quite a fluid kind of responsibilities in that midfield three. So I'd probably like to see that rather than like Donny van de Beek coming in. And yeah.
My one hope for the rest of the season is that we get rid of Martial in January and we genuinely just use McTominay as our backup striker.
I'd like to see a sign of do what we always do and sign some kind of washed up striker who still has some value.
I mean, Louis, we could get Luis Suarez out from under Inter Miami's noses.
No. Don't talk to me about that, man. I was taken Barcelona away last season, and my mate Ivan said, come to this restaurant, it does like amazing chicken Milanese. And fair enough, it was unbelievably good. And as we were walking out, he said, that's Luis Suarez's restaurant. And I was disgusted. I couldn't believe I just supported Luis Suarez. I haven't really forgiven my mate, to be honest, but the food was very nice.
There's a joke in there somewhere about, like, what did they serve? Like shoulder or something like that.
Yeah. All of our food came with bite marks in it. I think I'm
trying to think what other washed up strikers there are out there that we could bring in.
Yeah, I don't want to think. We'll talk about it in January. Let's leave it until then. We've got guess the player reveal, but just before that, do you think we could win either of these games? Do you think we could beat Bayern? We're obviously not going to beat Liverpool, so it's a stupid question.
I think we could beat Bayern. I think, you know what? I think actually the way our Champions League campaign has gone, I could see us winning a weird game against Bayern, but we needed a draw in the other game, and I could see that not happening. Yeah,
I think we'll beat Bayern, but not go through and then get humiliated at Anfield.
Would you rather, if assuming we're not going through, which is unlikely, would you rather us drop down to the Europa or just finish last and not bother with Europa?
As a fan, probably it's difficult because you want to go on the European trips, but then the Thursday to Sunday schedule as a match-going supporter is pretty annoying.
Yeah.
It really disrupts your week and you just can't have nice Sundays anymore. And it just feels like a very long but not necessarily enjoyable weekend, week after week. So I always, ultimately, I want United to be in a competition we might have a chance of winning. So I would rather be in the Europa. You want to be in every competition as long as you can. So yeah, I'd rather we finished in Europa. What's really the point of dropping down to fourth? Yeah. A bit more time on the training ground, but like we don't seem to be doing anything anyway. So all right, guess the player reveal and then we'll wrap up. Do you want to tell? Yeah, you tell me your guess and I will tell you if you're correct.
Yeah, my guess. So I'm hoping that I just wasn't forgetting someone in sort of the initial shortlist I made off the first clue. When she said born in London, immediately I thought Paul Ince. And then the third clue kind of cemented that in my head. A couple of Premier League titles around the first couple of years of the Premier League coming in, European Cup Winners' Cup in 91. It just made sense. So Paul Ince is my guess.
Spot on. Yeah. 2 titles, 2 FA Cups, European Cups Winners' Cup and a League Cup with United. And a total of 0 trophies with Liverpool, who he then joined. And yeah, he also played for, as you said.
And was it MK Dons that he won League 2 with?
Yes, I think 2007
as manager.
7 or 8. He also won the EFL trophy with them, but it's his only 2 trophies as a manager. Yeah, despite winning all sorts with Man United, he now seems to hate the club and works for Liverpool instead, as many of their former players do. Yes. All right, let's wrap up. Thank you for listening. I hope we've enjoyed the episode despite the sobering defeat to Bournemouth. I hope we've managed to give you something interesting, but also maybe give you a smile at some point. Christ, we need it. We will be back, potentially another episode similar to the one after the Chelsea game from Old Trafford, after the Bayern game, and then we'll definitely be back after Liverpool away. I hope. not feeling too down. And I hope with Eric Ten Hag.
Either that or the whole club and this podcast might have just imploded
yes.
if the week goes badly.
Yes. But thank you very much for listening. For our thoughts throughout the week, you can find Jack on Twitter at
UTD Tait, Tait.
And you can find me at Harry Robinson64 on the podcast itself at UTD Weekly Pod. That's POD at the end there. You can sign up to be a patron and get ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, and bonus Q&As for as little as £1.50 a month. Go to our Twitter to see how you can do that, and just click on a link to Patreon and you can sign up. Yes, if you've enjoyed the show, then feel free to leave us a review. It's always much appreciated. And yeah, we'll speak to you soon. Until then, have a great week. Try to forget about United until we play again on Tuesday, and enjoy the game against Bayern. And we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Podcast Network.
For over 28 years, Aflac has been a champion, donating over $168 million to fight pediatric cancer and blood disorders, including sickle cell disease. This December, Aflac proudly joins 97.1 Wash FM and Children's National Hospital for the annual Wash for Kids Radiothon. Mark your calendars for December 14th and 15th for a heartwarming 14-hour live broadcast where you can join Aflac in their efforts to support the miracle work happening at Children's National. Save the date, tune in, and be a part of something extraordinary with Aflac.